Welcome to Guardians of the Data. I'm your host, Ward Balzerzak. Each episode will explore the passions, expertise, and real-world experiences of security leaders who are helping the future of data security and governance. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Centra. To learn more about our AI-powered data security platform, please visit centra.io. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Guardians of the Data. My guest today has been in the industry for over 30 years. He's a cybersecurity expert, author, and speaker at major security conferences. Currently a senior information security manager in the financial services industry, Ben Rothke, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you.
Ben, in your professional opinion, what is the biggest data security challenge that organizations are facing?
Yeah, it's always, there's never just one challenge. If there was just one challenge, it would make things easier. But like in no specific order of sorts, I think, one thing is just, dealing with just the massive amounts of data, data sprawl. Those of us who've been in the industry a while, it wasn't that long ago. You'd spend thousands of dollars for a 500 megabyte hard drive. Now there's a store not far from me, Micro Center. I get coupons every now and then for a free, 1 terabyte USB drive. I think, there's estimates that I think the amount of data, just pure data in the Library of Congress, if you took all the books and just put them into text, is like something like 50 terabytes or so. So you literally could have have all of the entire contents of the Library of Congress, in your backpack. So there is that, that data sprawl, both from servers, from clouds, from mobile apps, sharing data with vendors. So that is a huge issue. In the last, year and change, the challenge of AI has just been a tsunami, both from the amount of the change there. A lot of companies are using AI. They're putting things into Claude, Chat GPT, not understanding the security repercussions. It really supercharges attacks. We saw things now. It's Anthropic's finding 0 days, but no, not 0 days. It's finding vulnerabilities that have been hidden for decades from very, very smart people. The bad news is that attackers have indeed used AI to supercharge their attacks, making they're finding vulnerabilities quicker than things could be patched. The scalability levels attacks are significant. Defenders always, come to the scene. The industry is responding in kind. I wasn't at the RSA conference last month, but there were, just scores and scores, if not hundreds, of vendors with AI solutions. So,
Oh, yes. And I was there. I could vouch for that.
I said AI is probably the biggest challenge, one that is changing the dynamic significantly. There's ransomware is another challenge. It's not going away. The attacks are becoming more sophisticated. The ransomware groups are getting better. It's gotten to the point that a country like North Korea, who has no industry, basically, but they were able to steal about $5 billion in ransom from U.S. firms last year. So ransomware is not going away anytime soon. And probably, maybe the last on the list, which might be the biggest challenge is, things are getting very, very complex. There's attackers are sophisticated. Even the applications that are being developed are sophisticated in general. There's so many tools out there, security tools. The challenge is it's like you're juggling all these tools and how to handle them. Um, Probably the biggest lies in the industry is that there's millions of open information security jobs. There aren't, and there never was. But even with that, companies often don't have. There's no shortage of very good people, very good information security people. Companies often don't have budgets to adequately staff their teams, so there's a lot of alerts, a lot of problems, but no inadequate staffing, to deal with that. So those, I mean, we could spend the whole day talking about challenges.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Those are some of them that that come to mind. I mean, we could talk about supply chain, third party um, supply chain, even in physical supplies is a very tenuous environment. I mean, we saw in the physical world, 20-mile wide Strait of Hormuz is a choke point for, I forget the numbers, 40% of the oil, 20%, whatever it is, just cutting off that small 20-mile wide passage has changed the world. Gas prices have skyrocketed. People, summer plans are having to change now. And then in the digital world, supply chains are equally tenuous. We're seeing with Magna Cart endless endless attacks against it. They patch it. Uh, Another vulnerability found. And so, supply chains are significant. Many companies will say, hey, we don't deal with that many vendors. We have a very lean set of, third-party vendors in our software supply chain. But, a single weak vendor could still expose massive, massive amounts of data. And, their dynamic has changed such that, 20 years ago, you'd have a data center and a strong physical presence, and it was relatively easy, should we say, to secure that perimeter. Now, the perimeter has long been gone.
Yeah. You talk to anybody new, they'll be like, "What the heck's a perimeter?"
Yeah, so that really that's another challenge. As getting back to AI, it's a lot of companies are playing catch up. Is that we had shadow IT, for a long time. Now you've got AI. They're not. They haven't put AI guardrails in place. There's no policies, no processes around it. So a lot of companies are playing catch up. When it comes to AI within their organization, and that's all of these challenges are those certain challenges you can fix by throwing an appliance in the data center. Those are the rare challenges. Companies don't have good email filtering, so you find a cloud solution, or you throw an appliance in.
Those are the good old days, right? When we had everything passing through the data center. And just go ahead and throw in that, Cisco whatever or the HP whatever, and we're good, right? Put all the
Yeah,
traffic through it.
but a lot of these are much broader, much more at the enterprise level. There's no appliance, there's no API to secure these. So I guess the reason the challenges with the capital C is for that very reason. It's you had this with the Millennium Tower in San Francisco. The foundation it was built on was inadequate. So trying to retrofit a 80-story dwelling with people in business in it is not so easy. In the end, they were able to fix it. They actually won some engineering awards with that, but it cost a massive amount of money. Once again, you had this in New York City also. It was I forget the building. It was one of these pencil skyscrapers. Um, they built it, and when they started installing the elevators, you know, there was a tilt, and elevators don't like tilts. In the end, unlike the Millennium Tower, this can't be fixed. It's a an eyesore now in New York City, and that problem is just I forget. They did the numbers, and the cost to fix it is much more than any profit they could make. So it's the everyone's pointing fingers at each other, but with that, those complex problems when they're at the foundational level don't lend themselves to easy fixes.
That's an interesting parallel. Kind of going back to Millennium Tower there for a second, right? Big building, they built it. Sounds like, based on what you said, the foundation wasn't great. So, in order to support that big building, they had to go back and fix it. Very, at least in my opinion, very applicable to some of the other challenge topics that you brought up, right? You mentioned, massive amounts of data sprawl. I don't think a lot of, I know myself, I resonate very closely with what you say about like, hey, I've got this 1 gigabyte drive. Back then it was probably $40. Now you can get 1 terabyte for like $15. It's crazy, right? The amount of
Yeah.
data storage, but also AI, right? And you mentioned, calling it a tsunami coming in. I feel like those things, just those two, very much like the Millennium Tower in a way. Those things are there, but they're being placed on very shaky foundations because a lot of folks put a lot of time and effort into that perimeter that no longer exists. We left our interiors soft and squishy, and a lot of sins, IT hygiene, identity and access management, not up to snuff, and now organizations are trying to fix it. Right? Trying to fix it before the whole darn thing collapses or they have a data breach or what have you. So, maybe kind of going back to, well, I mean, AI, right? A lot of the things that you said, AI exposes a lot of the things you said. So, in your opinion, what should organizations be doing to try to solve for those things? Any tips or tricks for our listeners?
Um, I mean, within everything, um, I forget where I forget what movie it was. The guy said baseball's a relatively simple game. You pitch, you hit, you catch, and in some ways, security, it's complex, but um, it's just a matter of even AI. I mean, you go back 15, 20 years, there was a debate if cloud computing was hype or it had value. So a lot of companies had they said, no, we'll, over our dead body, will we use the cloud? It's
Yep.
proven itself. Clearly, there was there was a lot of hype in the cloud, just like there's hype in everything. But at the end of the day, we see AWS, GCP, Microsoft. They've all got platforms where 99% of the Fortune 500 are using, if not 100%. So it's proven itself at that point. So AI in many ways is going to be like that. But with that, it's the key is, if you use that tsunami analogy, it's getting really in front of that wave is I mean, now they have sophisticated tsunami warning system. So in the rare event there is, the alarms go off. People, with tsunamis, there is time to move to higher ground. And so too with any technology out there, before implementing it, information security really needs to be intimately evolved from the very beginning and map out, what is the risks, what is our, when it comes to AI, what is the company's strategy on using it? Are they embracing it? Are they using it, with significant hesitance? And so and then, as I said, security really needs to be built in, part and parcel in the same way, when someone gets on an airplane, secure, design security safety is really built into every aspect of that plane. Often you don't, they'll see a seatbelt, they'll get a safety briefing, but it's a lot more than that. And so too, security, privacy, compliance needs to be built into to AI. And understand AI brings, massive benefits, and security can't be from the Department of No, is, because it's very easy to say no, no, no. But we need to be enablers, but enable, within limits which are appropriate to the organization. Some organizations have constraints around compliance, contracts. If you're in the EU, you've got GDPR. You have the EU AI directive. So AI is a massive undertaking, and it could bring massive benefits if done well. And it's really no different from any other technology. It's stay in front of the wave. Put those protections in place. Understand the risks. Create policies and processes. Dictating how to use it. Educating users to how it can be used, the benefits and the risks. In the days where there was mainframe security, that was completely irrelevant only in the workplace. People didn't have mainframes at home. But now, pretty much every aspect of information security at the corporate level is relevant to the person, when they go home, from access control, passwords, encryption, social engineering attacks, everything, because, the laptops, the desktops, the tablets people are working on at home are pretty much the same devices they're working at in the corporate arena. So the good news is that the training you tell them, let them know, hey, this is completely relevant to you. You want to use AI tools at the company, you have to follow these rules because there's these risks and there's vulnerabilities. When you put confidential, you upload a very, the notes, puts their note, their 5 years of notes from their psychotherapist, highly personal. That is massive benefits can be used to, say, aggregate those notes. But if they do that without understanding the risks, they can be sharing that with the world. So it's a matter of, and so all that training in the corporate arena is germane in the private arena. But back to AI, it's really, staying in front, understanding, what the what the risks are, and for each and every, aspect of AI implemented, create a security tool to mitigate the risks there. With it done judiciously, it could be done, extremely securely. But many times, especially we're seeing with AI, a lot of these very public disasters, should we say, is because due to configuration issues, due to lack of controls, being really oblivious to the risks of AI. We said AI is massive number of new features. Each feature has a security, privacy risk to it. As long as you understand that, we see this. A lot of people buy people who suddenly make a lot of money, buy a Maserati, while they might be able to afford it. They found the first time they drove it, they didn't realize the power behind it. It's very easy to crash a very high-powered vehicle like that. So it's a matter of if you're going to buy something with that potential, you really need to understand how to use it. And in the good old days, shall we say, is when you had to set up a physical server, it took a lot. It took technical training, and so you had to put those things in there. I mean, now with the cloud, you could spool up the equivalent of a data center in 5, 10, 15 minutes. And with great power comes great security vulnerabilities.
Absolutely, absolutely, and definitely agree. With AI, understanding use cases, secure upfront, all of that. I don't know about you. I've been to a lot of conversations and a lot of conferences lately, and I would say 99.59s. I'm not talking about availability. I'm talking about folks here. 99.59s of people I talk to, the cat's out of the bag, and they're saying, "Oh shoot," right? Because and most of these folks are in security, and the business said, "Hey, we want to use AI security, like keep up or try to catch up," sort of thing. And they enabled AI, whatever it is, whatever flavor. And now folks are saying, "Oh shoot," right? Cat's out of the bag, can't get it back in. Now what am I doing? Right? The foundation is rocky, it's crumbling, they got to shore it up. What do you tell those folks, right? They weren't able to stay in front. Now they're trying to catch up. Any thoughts or words of wisdom for them?
I mean, I forget who said it. I mean, the term "innovate or die." Well, but with that, not everything is that dramatic. I think the Social Security Administration, I think, a lot of their code is 50 years old, COBOL. So, I think the IRS, Social Security, they're a lot of the developers are supporting code, which is much older than themselves. So there's, I think maybe the government has that liberty of not having to do that. But I mean, clearly, it's not innovate or die. It's, you have to, innovate or, suffer the consequences. But in some ways, it might be counterintuitive, but, sometimes it's better just to do nothing and wait a bit. You on TV and medical dramas, they always right away start doing, heavy intervention. And in most cases, if you're not 100% sure, take some time before you do things which are heavily invasive, give them medications which may be more detrimental. So when it comes to AI, companies really need to define, what is the use case. Bruce Schneier is often said and spoken is the question is, what is your security problem, and how do you expect the security tool to solve it? It's every the CIO, CTO, CSO need to speak at a high level. What's the problem and how are we going to solve it? And when I've got a headache, I'll say I've got a headache and I expect the Tylenol to solve it. I don't understand the pharmacological aspects of Tylenol, but I don't need to. But at least at the very start, too many companies will buy these enterprise tools because it's on the Gartner hype cycle, and there's the Forrester wave. Not to knock Gartner or Forrester or IDC or any of them, but they are correct that there is a wave out there. These tools have potential, but in some ways, Tylenol. It's like going into a pharmacy and you ask the pharmacist, what's the best medication today? He's going to say, well, what's your problem? A pharmacist can't answer that question. And they won't answer that question. So when it comes to AI, what is your use case at a high level? What do you want from AI? And within AI is, in some way, getting back, it's like medicine. There's doctors, but there's 20, 30, 40 different specialties. And so there's, many different aspects of this thing called, AI. So how are you going to use it? And at the CXO level, they need to say at the high level how they're going to do that. And then before things are, going to be rolled out, you need to create, detailed design documents of, how it will be used. And, in the physical world, architects do that. They, create these plans, and then they hand it off to contractors and plumbers and electricians. You'll have a groundbreaking for a new building, and you're not going to see the building completed for 2 years, 3 years. When it comes to IT, you want to build a 250,000 square foot data center. Building it'll take 2 years. You go to AWS, you could build that data center in 5 minutes. There's GCP, AWS. You could run businesses off the free plans. Small, obviously, very small businesses. So you really could run a small business with a world-class data center for free. But with that, for the enterprises, they need to have the documentation what is the use case and how will it be built? How is it going to be supported? What are the security controls? What are the privacy controls? When that approach is taken, there's little surprises later on because they have stayed in front of that technology as opposed to the AI, which is just rolled out, without any design, with any implementation. As previous to my current role, I was in consulting, so there'd be somewhat often in financial services firms, some people would create an access database for a specific need, and it really did a great job of solving the problem. And they share it with a few people and then share it with a few other departments. Next thing you know, a year, 2 years later, you have this mission critical system running on a access database, which has never been documented, never had security built into it. So the key is to, avoid situations like that.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there a few times, actually. Oh, we have this access database. And where the heck did that come from? Who thought that was a good idea? But to your point, they had a need, right? They had a need, so they did it, and there it was.
Yeah, on one side, it's, to their credit for doing that. On the other side, IT within the organization, should have been there to do that. And the person who did it, there was no, they were doing it for no malicious intent there. And there was, legitimate business needs. But that is the challenge of shadow IT. And then that person leaves the organization, no one knows what's going on. And so in some ways, we're seeing a lot of AI problems creating themselves from situations like that. But as I said, a security death, you don't want to be in the department of no, but on the other side, IT needs to, IT in general, and then in concert with information security, really needs to put those guardrails in place to let them know, what they can, what they can't do. Some organizations are highly centralized. Others are, decentralized. And so you'll find with that decentralization has significant benefits. The downside is you can have these application systems created that never went through security review. That could be, they're oblivious to CCPA and NYDC and GDPR, all those acronyms that, when violated, can incur significant financial risk to the organization.
Absolutely, absolutely. And certainly, by our conversation so far, Ben, you've been in the industry for a while, so about 30 years. Not to date you or anything, but you're currently a senior manager. What was your journey? How did you get to where you are today in your career?
Yeah, so I started. First job was in database programming. And then, I started with IT and moved up from there. And this is starting then when NetWare was all the rage. So I was doing started getting involved in network support, became a CNE, which was a certified network engineer, which was a golden ticket at the time, and now um, there was a company also. They didn't. They innovated a little too late, and I had a interest in security, um, um, which not many people in IT had at the time, and so there were security projects when they came up. I'd be the only one who would volunteer for them. Well, and so I was working at a large bank at the time, and started doing more and more with security, and over time became I'd say at the beginning was 90% programming, 90% network support, and then slowly became 100% uh, information security. So it was, at the beginning it was a lot of hands-on firewalls and other tools, and then joined. You went into after spending a few years there. Started working at a professional services firm. So that was interesting. Just helping a lot of different organizations with their security needs. Started doing a lot with PCI, credit card security. One of my PCI colleagues, David Munhake, likes to say often a rising tide raises all ships. And so, PCI did that in the payment card space. Really brought significant security, privacy controls to the payment card space. So, was involved in that. So, the good news is security really is, for those who have an interest in security. There's a lot of opportunities for people who want to push themselves. When I first started, was before open source was, open source was seen as should we say, not in the corporate world. So there was you'd need protocol analyzers for network diagnostic, and there was a big company at the time, Network General, and they had on a compact laptop a luggable sniffer. I think at the time, we bought two for $25,000. Now you could buy a $50 laptop and put Wireshark on it. So for $50, you could get what was 25 grand. That's one example. And then you've got, Kali Linux with hundreds of information security tools. And so if you had to price out Kali Linux in a commercial setting, say 20 years ago, might have been $500,000 or so, whatever the number is, whether it's 100,000 or a million.
Still a lot.
Yeah, you could put that on a $50 laptop now and get all those tools for free. People could in homes, they could create the security lab. So for those who are self-starters and enjoy that, there is a lot of opportunity there. I think in general, security is like that, especially with open source. It does. I said, as someone wanted to be a mainframe programmer, you couldn't put a mainframe in your house. And
you had to do that on the job, right? That was the only place you were going to do it.
Right. And so there was that. Yeah. And if you could afford to buy a mainframe, you probably didn't need to work to be up. And so, with that, open source gives, massive benefits to the professional who wants to get their hands dirty and may not have the ability to do that in the corporate setting. And they could also take those tools when they go on a job interview and say, hey, I've got this expertise. I did this in a home lab. I did the here. Go to my repos online, GitHub, and you can see what I've done. As it is, 20 years ago, that was just not feasible for people, and now that's a lot of free opportunity that doesn't break the bank.
Yeah. even just thinking about to your point there about how kind of the change in almost the interviewing process, getting a job process. I remember getting my first job years ago. It was, submit your resume and have the interviews. I remember looking for a job a few years back. Like you would do that part, right? That was the first part. That it's like, oh, please link to your GitHub repo. Please link to your projects, your website, your LinkedIn. Like all of these things. Like now is additional ways to market yourself and show off your expertise. It's amazing. It's amazing where things have come. So, Ben, if you can go back in time, you've been in the industry about 30 years. If you can go back in time, maybe in your mainframe days, for example, is there any advice that you'd give yourself or any different path that you would have taken?
Sort of, I guess, in the starting like, I mean, when Cisco was first a company, for example, a person could be a Cisco expert and know, because Cisco's product set was pretty lean. I mean, now someone goes to Cisco, goes to Palo Alto, you just have to page through all the products. The point being is you can't, no one, as it is, 20 years ago, you could be a Cisco know-it-all, know everything about all the Cisco products. And now, there's just so much out there. It really takes a village. And so a person really says, needs to have a network, needs to have a, community, really, work with people. I think in a IT in general, information security specifically, a person needs to have direction, where they want to go. SANS, for example, has they've got career paths and, people could take it, do you want to say, malware analyst? Do you want to be a secure programming? Do you want to go into, management? And so they're trying to push their SANS courses, which are actually superb. But also the important point there is, they've got this roadmap and that direction, and work with people who will, support you in that. I think I was fortunate to always be in, very, never worked in a Dilbert organization. When I was in consulting was in some of those Dilbert organizations. And the good thing in consulting is, you go in and you're there a month, 2 months, 3 months, and you can walk away. But I think that, the main point is, people have to own their journey, and know that, we all need, lots of help along the way because you can't know it. I think the good thing, though, is the information security is very, very open, very supportive. As I said, the RSA conference is the big information security conference, and you could go there, and after whether it's Adi Shamir, who's the S in RSA, or Diffie, Whit Diffie, who's the Diffie and Diffie Hellman. These are people who built the industry. You could go and you could talk to them. I mean, someone like Bruce Schneier, he's available. You can't email him, so he's supportive. And there's, these are some of the the rock stars in the industry. But even those who are people well known, is people in general are very open, very supportive. There's and it really attach yourself to positive people like that. I said, and taking that approach, I think there's there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I think the security is it's a challenging environment now. AI has thrown a big monkey wrench in the industry. I mean, within IT, within security, the waters which were crystal clear, maybe 2 years ago, are now somewhat murky. Hopefully they'll clear up. But I think, to your point is, in anyone's journey, they really have to, own their journey, realize there's people you need to attach to along the way. And, within security, you need to stay current and, find organizations that will support training, support development. Because within security, you got to keep learning, keep updating, because Once again, unless a person's at, Social Security Administration, IRS. Once again, these systems are not going anywhere soon. Once again, if a person wants to do COBOL for the next 50 years, then those are great great organizations to be at. But if they don't, for most others, if they don't upgrade their skill sets, they can put their careers at risk.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of, connecting and attaching, if folks want to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
Um, there's a thing called ATP. It's an RFC called Avian Transport Protocol. It's how you can move packets via birds, but it's a real RFC out there. I was going to say, send a carrier pigeon, but yeah, I'm available. LinkedIn, probably the best way. Send me a message, send me an email. Reach out to me. I'm going to be at the Secure 360 conference next month in Minneapolis. So if you're there, say hi.
All right. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining today. This has been a great episode.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. So.
All right. And big thank you to the audience. Really hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something. Please tell others in your network to follow and listen. This has been another exciting episode of Guardians of the Data. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Guardians of the Data. Thanks for tuning in. For show notes and more, visit guardiansofthedata.show. Guardians of the Data is made possible by support from Centra. To see how we help organizations discover and classify all of their data accurately and automatically while quickly achieving petabyte-scale data protection without the fuss, please visit Centra.io. Catch you next time.